Cool. You can start, Aruna.
Thank you for joining us, everyone, today, like on a Friday evening, taking the time out to do this. So I just wanted to set the stage and talk about the work of Citizen Matters before I hand it over to our moderator for the evening, Padmaja. So we are a civic media platform, and we've been writing on urban and civic issues in the city since 2016. And so we've been trying to bring together various stakeholders on platforms like this, especially in the context of COVID. We were able to bring together various officials and residents and RWAs and civil society groups to deep dive into a lot of issues, taking off from our reporting and the stories that we've done over time. And so we look at not just the problems, but we're also trying to bring in a solutions focus to a lot of our stories. So we're not trying to stop at, say, identifying a problem or laying out this is why things are the way they are, but also figure out how we as a city can work together to make things happen. And also learn from what's happening around the country and around the world, with a lot of things that are happening in other cities in terms of issues around water, commute, air quality, governance. What can Chennai learn from other cities, and how can we implement these best practices that we find elsewhere here? So this is part of such an effort where we are looking to discuss parking management in the city. This is an issue I think that we've all contended with at one point of time or another. So I wanted to just thank you for joining us and hand it over to Padmaja to take the discussion forward.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this discussion by Citizen Matters Chennai. We are back with our event of the month. I am Padmaja, a reporter with Citizen Matters Chennai, and we are a media organization reporting on critical urban issues. And the topic for today's panel discussion is finding a solution for street parking in Chennai. I'd like to invite my colleague and associate editor of Citizen Matters Chennai, Aruna, to speak about our work at Citizen Matters and our coverage on parking management in Chennai. Over to you, Aruna.
Hi. So I will just lay out a couple of things that we have done over time on parking management, and then we'll start the discussion. So what we've had going on so far with us is that we've done a bunch of stories that residents have brought together. So we've often found that residents have complained about street parking issues in their city and in their locality, where they're like, when we step out, what would be a problem? We find that vehicles are parked outside our homes. There have been commercial establishments that have come up in our mixed use sort of neighborhood, and we don't know if they're allowed to park where they are parking. And then we've also had a series of interviews with other practitioners. We'd also had a sit down with Mr. Raj on what the city is planning to do with regards to parking, I think pre-COVID. So we would like to find out if the plans have changed and how things have been since as well. So we have looked at all of these issues from a standalone sort of point of view, where we've had practitioners speak to us, we've had residents speak to us. And this is an effort to bring everyone together to one platform to understand this issue in a more holistic manner, and to look at what a solution for on-street parking for a city like Chennai could possibly look like.
Thank you, Aruna. So before we go ahead, I just want to make some ground rules clear. So we will start with a general discussion with all of the panelists, and then we will open the floor for listeners and participants to share their questions and inputs. So I request you to share your questions in the chat box or in boxes on YouTube. We will try our best to answer each of them, and we request everybody to maintain or not engage in any sort of trolling or basically any sort of abuse. So we'll right now begin our session. So I would like to welcome our five panelists who have joined for the event, and they will be sharing their insights on parking management in the city. So our first panelist for today is Mr. Sanjay Pinto. So he is an advocate practicing at the Madras High Court, a columnist, author of 4 books, and former resident editor of NDTV. He's a regular panelist on primetime debates on national TV news channels. Apart from this, Sanjay also speaks about civic issues, including parking on Chennai roads. The next panelist we have is Ms. Ashwati Dilip. She is the Managing Director of ITDP India. She is a sought-after expert in raising support for sustainable mobility from key decision makers, governments, and stakeholders. With support from her smart and enthusiastic team, she works with national, state, and city governments, providing technical assistance on sustainable and equitable mobility. The next panelist we have, I think Mr. David has joined. Apart from, so he is a journalist, director of Bodhi Group of Chennai, and also an event planner. Apart from this, he is also a Tamil Nadu police traffic warden. So after being inspired by his father, who is a retired police officer, he has been passionate towards the department. So as a traffic warden, he has taught a lot of children in schools. And last but not the least, we have Mr. Kannan Balachandran, the Secretary of T Nagar Resident Welfare Association. He has been living in Chennai and has a lot to share about parking in T Nagar. So, yeah. And starting off with the panel, we can hardly see a road in Chennai that does not have any vehicle parked on the road, like with more and more privately owned vehicles in Chennai coming up. As of 2021, there were around 60 lakh vehicles. So it becomes more important to manage and streamline vehicle parking in Chennai. So to manage street parking in Chennai, Greater Chennai Corporation has come up with a slew of initiatives, from multi-level parking spaces in Chennai to even paid parking spaces, and introducing a smart parking app. So this smart parking app works like how you book tickets in a cinema hall to watch a movie. Similarly, you book tickets to park on the roads. So, but how these initiatives have panned out is a different story. Before we dive into that, I would like to ask Mr. Sanjay Pinto, Mr. David, and Mr. Kannan on what sort of issues and concerns they have seen with respect to street parking in Chennai. So I would like Sanjay sir and David and Kannan sir to weigh in.
Can I start?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First, on the issue of parking, first and foremost is the CMDA's development control regulation. When they give permission for planning buildings, they should ensure that parking is there in all the buildings. This is not available even till today. The question of parking for commercial establishments, the government is not willing. The shop owners are not willing to give parking space. Instead, they give parking on the streets. In fact, this Diwali, you should have seen, the police by themselves gave free parking in T Nagar area. When Smart City is charging about 60 rupees an hour in Pandi Bazaar, the T Nagar police were giving free parking in all roads. We question them even why they are doing free parking. Basically, this is an understanding between the commercial establishments and the government. Second thing is, even in flat promoters who are supposed to give parking space, they are not giving parking space even now. In most of the older flats and all, if you see, the parking space have been converted to commercial establishments. So this is becoming a bigger problem. The hawkers, if you take, every hawker has a two-wheeler today. In another 5 years, they will definitely have a car, because cars are becoming, second-hand cars are cheaper than two-wheelers today. So every hawker may have a car. Where will he park? In the service road in T Nagar Usman Road is full of parking. We are not able to drive. In fact, almost all the time we are fighting with the police, the traffic police, and no solution yet. Despite of court orders, nobody worries about it. The residents actually feel the pinch of it. In the recent Justice Rajeshwar Committee report for violation buildings, they have said you can parking can be allowed in residential streets if the commercial establishment buys the land and converts it to parking. The pollution level has gone very high. Nobody thinks about the pollution in the residential area. Today in Srinagar, the elders, the youngsters, the children, they are not able to walk on roads. It has become a total chaos. I mean, the entire Srinagar itself has become a total chaos as of today, with all this metro rail projects and things like that. Everything has become, now the parking has been allotted to all streets. And the worst of it is, every vehicle will have a police sticker or an advocate sticker, wherein the resident even can't question them. They will have to wait till the guy takes the vehicle from the main entrance door. Till the time we have to wait. This is the actual status today. I don't think the word smart city or Singara Chennai is all for people who don't understand English or who doesn't know the meaning of it.
I think Mr. Kannan has certainly set the cat among the pigeons here, and I completely endorse most of what he said. I think, when commercial establishments come up, they get a certain extra amount of FSI to provide parking. In fact, the Kerala High Court had even gone to the extent of saying that commercial establishments should not charge for parking. That said, today, the situation on the ground, and we'll come to solutions, I'm sure, in the latter half of our discussion. But I, for one, believe that today in Chennai, it's a double whammy that we face. On the one hand, you have the metro rail work that, of course, is a lasting solution at some point. And then stormwater drains, which have been, there's been no method in the madness in the sense. So forget parking, where's the space to drive? Pedestrians are a completely forgotten lot in the scheme of things. Today, you need a driver not to drive, but to park. When I go to the court, I make sure that I leave home at least half an hour before the time I'm supposed to reach court, just to get a parking slot, so that nobody parks in front of me if I have to leave midway, that I'm not stuck there. When I go to pick up my kids, again, it's the same story. I go at least 45 minutes before the pickup time. Why? Because most schools today don't have parking. You have 1,000, 2,000 students in each school today. And look at the number of cars. Today, Mr. Kannan spoke about two-wheelers and hawkers having four-wheelers. Today, most households today have 2 cars at least. And then there is this unholy nexus between local officials and shopkeepers, kind of consider the pavement around their shops to be their personal fiefdom. So there is this practice of parking on the pavements. So as I said, no space for people to walk. There's no space to park also. In fact, in a prominent school, there's a retired police official who has the audacity to put a police board in his vehicle and goes and parks right in front of the gate next to the no parking board in front of the school. Now, what example is he setting? First of all, it's misrepresentation to put a police board when you're no longer in service. Secondly, what example are you setting to your own children whom you're going to pick up when you go and park next to a no parking board? So I think we need to flag these issues. Yes, the lasting solutions remain. I'm sure Raj Cherubal, my good friend, he used to be on my programs in NDTV for many years in the past. And even when I was at NDTV, I've run so many campaigns, save our pavements and all that. Nothing gets done. It's sad. In fact, I would have been happy if I applaud Citizen Matters for taking up these issues, because this is real journalism, pounding the pavement literally. But I would have been happier to see officials from the Chennai Corporation, I'm not talking about, smart city, but Chennai Corporation, at least a deputy commissioner or a joint commissioner, officials from the Chennai police, at least a deputy commissioner or a joint commissioner or the additional commissioner himself, to come here, because these are platforms to interact with citizens. Why are these officials not participating in these programs? Why? Because I don't think any of them have the difficulty that we common citizens face. I have, in fact, in one of my legal columns, I've suggested let the mayor, let the ministers, let the local government officials who are supposed to be field officials, let them drive themselves without any government driver for 1 week, for just 1 week, and they will get to know the problems that we common citizens face. Then automatically things fall into place. What we are witnessing now is that common citizens, concerned citizens like us, keep flagging issues, keep doing the work that ground field officials should be doing, and then telling people, where is this question of not taking any action when you're parking vehicles for months and years on end on pavements? On pavements. Coming to solutions, I have certain innovative solutions, but I don't want, this is more in the nature of a sort of a preamble. And I don't want to dominate the discussion in any sense. This is not going to be a 9 p.m. show. So I think all the others important stakeholders are there. I would like to hear from them as well.
So thank you, Mr. Sanjay. So as he rightly pointed out, I'm really sorry that I missed to introduce Mr. Raj. So Raj Cherubal has joined us. He is the CEO of Chennai Smart City Limited, and Smart City is a flagship initiative of the Government of India implemented in the Chennai Corporation. And he has worked in several projects on traffic, sustainable transportation, and urban planning. So thank you so much for joining us today, sir. So I would like to ask you about, before we discuss about the multi-level parking and the paid parking slots, I would like to ask you and Ms. Ashwati on what rationale was there before the multi-level parking and the paid parking system was envisioned. So if you could share about that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm able to open my video. I think it says host has to do that. So anyway, thank you for unmute. I think the video has to be started, if at all. Okay. Yeah. So first of all, I think, see, there are two different parts to it, right? As citizens, we have the right to complain, and anybody in India, in any Indian city, it's a pathetic sight to see cars and bikes take over every inch of our road. So that's a separate thing. But if you're going to try to solve this problem, first thing we have to acknowledge is that it is not as simple as many of the seminars discuss. So, for example, I know we're not supposed to talk about solution right now. Last almost 8 years, Chennai has been working on the parking management problem. So around 7,000 slots, for example, you have a dedicated team that's supposed to go collect fees, etc. Now ask yourself this question: who has parking problem? Is the people who are driving the car mainly, and of course the pedestrian where the cars park. So if you think think in a systematic way, you realize some countries are able to have handle on parking because they have fantastic public transport, very little cars on the road, etc. And very importantly, the local government has complete control over their city. So there is no, you can't go and argue that I'll park my car on the footpath, let's see what you can do. They'll tow your car away. They'll charge you a fine, etc., etc. So what I'm trying to say is that the parking is one of the most difficult. If this forum is going to try and solve parking problem, let us actually acknowledge that this is one of the most difficult problems to solve anywhere in the world, because it's a question of muscle. It's not a question of technology. It's not a question whether Chennai people are good people or bad people. Around the world, if you look at parking problem, most part of the world, they'll say nobody wants to pay parking fees. Everybody wants empty slot, so your car can go park there. Everybody thinks somebody else is the criminal who is parking in the wrong space, etc., right? So there is a systemic problem where there are multiple agencies with multiple jurisdiction, etc. And unless we solve each and every of those problems, this problem is not going to get solved. I know this because I've been doing this for the last, 10, 15 years. And after a lot of battle, we've got a company that is actually doing parking management in T Nagar, Mylapore, and a bunch of places, 7,000 slots, like I said. Getting there has been, it's easier to pull your own teeth than actually getting parking management done. I'll get you some examples, right? You're saying, let's say somebody has to be towed if they're parking in the wrong place. As per Motor Vehicles Act, only a sub-inspector and above can actually give you a challan. That's a rule. That's it. Whether you like it or not, that's a rule. Residential area, should you allow parking on the road or not? It's not very clear. Can you go charge somebody who's parked a car in front of their thing? So I can go on and on and on and on whole evening describing all the complexity of this problem. So since it's a preamble, what I would say is that let's not oversimplify the terrible, horrible problem. I acknowledge what Sanjay and others are saying. It's a pathetic, terrible problem. Not just Chennai, but every city in India is facing this, because there are way too many cars, way too many bikes on the road. Added to that, the fact that the city, whether it's police, whether it is traffic police or corporation, has very little ability to enforce many of the rules, and many of the rules are actually contradictory. Simple example, for example, if you take a road, we have parking management in T Nagar, we have parking management in various places, right? Imagine tomorrow if you want to change the fees of that slot to 100 rupees. So for example, if you go to Express Avenue Mall, you want to park in a fancy place, you have to pay 100 or 150 bucks. If you don't like it, you can go down and park in the second or third basement and pay 60 rupees, 70 rupees per hour or something. Are we as a society ready to pay that amount? If you own a 80 lakh rupee BMW or a 1 crore Rolls Royce or a 8 lakh rupee, let's say Maruti or whatever, right? Are you willing to pay 40 rupees, 60 rupees, 100 rupees? This is what a London and Paris does. And so on and so forth. I can go on, and I'm sure Shruti will go on for these kinds of policy, theory, framework, and so on. But the question again comes down to, does the system has the capacity to enforce and implement all these things? We are getting there. It's going to take a long time. Believe me, we've been doing this for a long time. Even after getting all the tenders, everything, it's still a struggle uphill. But it is a way too complex problem. So my only request in the preamble is that don't oversimplify the problem and make it sound like if only officials could do this, if only officials had energy, if only police had the energy to enforce law. It's not that simple as we make it sound. It is actually a very complicated problem. I hope we'll solve it. But right now, we have a long way to go. I'll stop with that, and I'm sure we'll discuss more.
Thank you so much, Raj. And it was very interesting to hear from our first two speakers as well. And, to sort of add to a bit of my introduction as well, I'm a mother with 2 children, and walking on the park roads with cars everywhere, waiting with these 2 little children, it's a nightmare. So that's my story as a citizen. But then, I'm as someone who works very closely with the government, I should say that, and it's not just Chennai. We're working in Coimbatore, we're working in cities like Pune, Delhi, Mumbai. So there are multiple cities in India that are, facing this problem of parking, and it's not a unique problem that only Chennai faces. And these cities are trying to tackle parking, which we must definitely commend, because like Raj said, it's a very difficult problem to solve, especially because of the different departments involved, multiple rules that were set many years ago when this issue was not as dramatic as it is right now. But whatever said and done, it is a terrible and a horrible problem, like Raj said. And what we must understand is that when, like recently I've been thinking, when we think of scientists, right, we have complicated problems and we need a solution. And when a scientist tries to solve the problem and there are failures, we don't like shoot him down. We are aware that he's trying to solve the problem, and then there is a bulb that comes out someday, which lights our cities. Lights our houses. These problems, the problems that our cities face, are like that. It's not a cookie cutter solution that what London has, that we can just plant in Chennai and it would just work. We will have to test solutions in our cities, learn from our solutions which are not working, and then improve them over years to make sure that we create a city which is as livable as London or Seoul or whichever are those cities that we talk about. In that context, what I would say is that Chennai has taken often when Chennai has taken its first steps, often what happens is that it's old solutions that are sold. So, for example, multi-level car park is a bit of an old solution, which most people think is the solution to go ahead, including our citizens. For example, again, I wouldn't want to go into too much into detail because you have the next sections coming in. But there are a lot of asks that we need multi-level car parks, and sometimes we need so many number of multi-level car parks. And at that particular point, the stakeholders are not ready to accept that this is not a right solution, probably. Enforcement is what is most important for our cities. We need to enforce on-street parking. And because of the multiple agencies, it is a tricky situation, which does not mean that we cannot bell the cat. We do need to work on this, keep improving, and get better at it. I would leave it there, and as the discussion progresses, dive a bit more deeper as well. but I think it's a great start to this conversation.
So,
in fact,
as-
Padmada, I would suggest that since most of these seminars become very generic discussion, just take an example, since Chennai has done far more than many other cities in this topic, right? So, for example, we have a 40 crore rupee multi-level car parks, probably one of the most advanced technologies. I'll take you guys inside. 90 seconds, your cars come down. If you park it upstairs, it goes automatically without any manual intervention. Without any manual intervention, it comes down in 90 seconds, right? You can't find any more advanced than this. And Pedestrian Plaza, for example, has a parking management system. They have slots. You go there, you're supposed to pay X rupees and park there. Just take that problem, and we don't have to solve this problem right now, but it will help not talk general stuff and rather take some concrete example and ask yourself, where is the problem, right? And I can next session I can explain to you what the issues are, but unless you realize what the real issues are, and lawyers like Sanjay, residents like Kannan and others need to be able to say, you know what, we need to change this law. Otherwise, you can talk forever, it's not going to change. We need to figure out, okay, are we going to have dynamic parking, 50 rupees inside, but 150 rupees outside. So people are forced into the multi-level car park, and so on and so forth, right? Unless we start saying specific problems and start getting into the details and saying, yes, we have come to the 10th or 11th or 12th step. Now we need to solve the further steps. We end up talking very generic stuff, and that is not going to solve this problem anytime, any day soon.
Raj, I'm glad you raised that point. Now, let's talk about parking in schools, for instance, for school children. Very few schools today have playgrounds which can also double up as parking lots, and children are not playing. Now, straight away, I can think of the top of my head of a solution. See, even when it comes to admission, most schools, at least on paper, have this criteria that they should take in students only who live within a 5-kilometer radius. If that's the case, just like Ms. Jayalalitha brought about rainwater harvesting and made it mandatory, why can't we need a law to make carpooling mandatory? There are several people who live close by from a particular school. And if carpooling can be made mandatory, that's one small step, one small solution. That's one.
Sanjay, many other things you're going to say is going to be music to my ear and music to Ashwati's ear.
So let the music play on in that case.
I completely agree. You know, the fundamental problem of parking
one is to make carpooling,
number of cars and number of bikes.
A law. Because right now it's only, Ashwati says, why not have school buses as well? Yes, school buses as well. But how many school buses, again, we've had problems with safety and all that. Even carpooling probably took a back seat after COVID struck us, because people are not willing to, as to whether how safe their children will be, will the driver be wearing a mask and all that. Those are legitimate concerns. Also, this issue of, if you have, I'm just thinking aloud, the regional transport, has to be a holistic approach. The regional transport offices, when you go for registration of vehicles, if there are more than X number of vehicles from a particular address, they need to have some mechanism to see as to what is the parking space available there. Let's say if there are 5 vehicles attached to one residential address, does that person have parking? Because right now what's happening is you have so many mixed areas in Chennai. So you have a restaurant just next to your house, your residential building, and they use all the adjoining streets for valet parking. They don't have parking enough. Nobody can have enough parking for the kind of business they do. They use adjoining streets as valet parking. So if there is a visitor who has to come to your residential building, where will they park? So this is a solution. So I think this is the problem really. So I think if we can have some sort of, one is again, given the kind of cars, if we have all these SUVs and all that, SUVs are mainly meant for people to travel out of town. You don't really need such huge cars. So that's another problem, because one car will end up taking the space of 2 cars. So these are practical issues that I have observed. Just in a eureka moment, these things came to my mind.
No, sorry. That's what I said. So, unless we take specific issues and make progress on those things, many of these seminars become very generic. So that's why I mentioned the MLCP, because a lot of criticism, and rightly so, by the way, I welcome those criticism because we deserve it, right? As a city, we spent a lot of money building this MLCP, and if it is half empty, quarter empty, we need to be criticized. So I'm all welcoming the criticism, but my point is, MLCP is built by somebody, road enforcement is somebody else, building rules that somebody earlier, Kannan and others had mentioned about building rules is CMDA. So there is a lot of disparate organizations doing a lot of different things. So again, I come back to the MLCP, for example. You can solve T Nagar Paddy Bazaar as an example problem by raising the price of parking outside to, let's say, something that says, look, hey, just like in Express Avenue Mall, you want to park near Lacoste showroom, you have to pay $150. You don't like that? We have built a taxpayer, not my money or your money. It's taxpayers' money. 40 crores has been spent to build a fancy multi-level car park. Please go park inside. If you park somewhere else, we will tag it, tow it away. So the thing is, who will build the cat? There has to be some pressure from the public and the shopkeepers to say, you know what, fine, do this. But then the problem becomes, what if the shopkeeper say, no, panna dinga, your customers adibadu. Or if the residents say, no, you see, you do that in other road, don't do it in my road, etc., right? So the solution is very obvious. So for example, if I am running, let's say, the MLCP, and if I don't have control over, let's say, 500 meters around the MLCP, and if people can drop their car wherever they want to, right? A 0 rupee in front of somebody's house, on top of somebody's, let's say, somewhere, 20 rupees or 5 rupees somewhere. Why should they come into a 40 crore rupee MLCP? Ask yourself, right? So it becomes it's a systemic problem that is saying, unless you look at parking not from an individual person's point of view, or this person is behaving badly or that person behaving badly, you have to look at it as a part of the, like larger piece of the puzzle. We will never be able to solve it. And I don't want to sound like a theoretician, but many other countries that have solved parking problem has also solved the bus problem, has solved the metro rail problem, has solved. So when I'll give you this example, right? If I were to live in New Jersey or somewhere, and if I were to take my family to New York City for a movie, I have two choices only. You can take your car, pay through your nose, and pay through, all kinds of charges to take my car into New York City and ride around. That's one choice. Or you can take bus, metro rail, etc., go with your family and come back. Are we willing to do that as a society? That's the fundamental question. It's not a technological problem. It is not an engineering problem. Anybody can build a multi-level car park. No big deal. Question you have to ask is, are we as citizens ready for?
I think we lost Raj.
Sir, I think
Parking management charge, and so on. I'll stop here. I don't want to dominate the conversation, but all I'm saying is, Citizen Matters is people like you are doing amazing work. I think we need to elevate this conversation to a much higher level rather than saying, I'm not saying we are saying this, but typically seminars are Chennai makkal serilla, Mumbai makkal serilla, Guwahati la nalla makkal. In the anga park panare, and the official park the car somewhere. All that is fine, but there is a systemic problem that needs to be dealt with. I'll stop here.
Can I tell you, Mr. Raj?
Yes, sir.
இப்போ பாண்டி பஜார்ல 1 hour வந்து 60 rupees ரோட் சைட் பார்க்கிங் வச்சிருக்கீங்க.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
ஓகே, இப்போ அங்க பார்க் பண்றவங்க யாரும் 60 rupees கொடுக்கறது இல்ல, 20 ரூபா கொடுத்துட்டு எடுத்துட்டு போயிட்டே இருக்காங்க. அதுக்கு ரெசிப்ட் கிடையாது. Much cheaper.
Understand, sir. I understand all those issues. I am not even debate. I won't even get to the debate of it because this is the same problem we deal with every day.
When the other speaker said that a restaurant residential complex பக்கத்துல வந்ததுன்னா பார்க்கிங் பாதிக்குதுன்ட்டு, இது typically a CMDA problem. இந்த லேண்ட் யூஸ் ஜோனை மாற்றவே கூடாதுங்கிறது தான் நாங்கெல்லாம் ஃபைட் பண்றோம். ஒரு ரெசிடென்ஷியல் ஏரியால இப்போ சரவணா ஸ்டோர்ஸோ இல்லை ஜிஆர்டியோ போத்தீஸோ கடையை திறந்துட்டான்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க, land use மாத்தி, the entire residents on the street entire residents are in trouble.
No, sir, Mr. Kannan, I think just for the sake of the audience here, let me play the devil's advocate here, right? So if you go to Hong Kong, right, there are fancy apartments, fancy stores, fancy grocery stores, everything is there, but there's no parking problem, there's no congestion on the road, there's no chaos on the road, because 93% of the people there go by public transport. So I think we are looking at the problem, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, we are looking at the problem in a different way.
Sir,
I can always walk and go to Saravana.
Just for chinna udaharanam, I just want not interrupt you. நீங்களும் பொலிட்டிஷியன் மாதிரியே பேச ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டீங்க. பிரைஸ் ஏத்தனா என்ன சொல்லுவாங்க, மற்ற ஸ்டேட்டை பாருங்க, மற்ற ஸ்டேட்டோட கம்மியா இருக்குதுன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. நீங்க வெளிநாட்டோட கம்பேர் பண்றீங்க. இல்ல கம்பேரிசன் வேண்டாம்.
No, sir, I'm not comparing. I'm saying there is a, like a tomato price, gold price, parking is a commodity.
See, last week,
unless we price it.
Last week I went to Salem, Kumbakonam, Mayiladurai. Anga apartments la kuda parking illa. They are parking on roads. I'm talking about cities like Salem, Kumbakonam, Mayiladurai.
I understand. I acknowledge. I mean, I don't want this to be a debate between this thing. All I'm trying to say is, sir, there are multiple pieces to this puzzle. One is the carrot side of it. Unless everybody, all of us who hate the chaos on the road and the unruliness on the road, has to push for two things. One, better public transport, sir. People don't have to take their cars and bikes. That's the start of the solution. Number one. Number two, if there is no stick, which means high parking charges, high congestion charges, etc., that makes it very difficult for you to take a car somewhere, difficult to take a bike somewhere. Why should anybody obey the rules, right? If I can park for 0 rupees on the side of the road and go away, no amount of seminar is going to change my mind. So unless they say, look, inga 100 rupaikku, either you pay $100 or take MTC bus. We have to come to a point like advanced cities. We cannot talk about the same topic again and again. We need to get to a point where the choice of people is metro rail edunga, nalla alagana suburban rail edunga, fantastic AC bus edunga. அப்படி உங்களுக்கு அவங்க கார் எடுக்கணுமா, நீ அங்க போனா 100 ரூபா உங்களுக்கு சார்ஜ் ஆகும், 150 ரூபா சார்ஜ் ஆகும் per hour. Depends. Evening peak hourல 150 ரூபா, நான் peak hourல மேபி 80 rupees. So அந்த மாதிரி sophistication வரலனாக்கா நம்ம இப்படியே பேசிட்டு இருக்க போறோம். Because I share your frustration, sir, Mr. Kannan. I've been Sashwati, myself and all, we've been doing this for 20 years. So I'm not even speaking to you as an official or any of that stuff. I'm speaking to you purely as a citizen. I share your frustration. I don't own a car. I walk everywhere. I take MRTS, etc. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And I'm as annoyed at the whole problem as thing. My point is, we have to elevate and get to the Hong Kong, London level. But we cannot keep saying things. We have to be able to say that, yes, I'm willing to pay $100. We want the rich people who own cars to pay $100 or $200 per hour for parking, or go in MTC bus. There are millions of people going in MTC bus. People should take MTC bus. People should take a metro rail. Unless we get to that level, நம்ம திருப்பி flyover கட்டிட்டு திருப்பி road widening, திருப்பி MLCP கட்டிட்டு இருந்தா, what is the point of talking about parking?
Thank you, sir.
We'll come to the behavioral nudges part of it. Like, how do you make a population that's so used to personal vehicles and not embracing public transport, especially in the aftermath of COVID, how do you nudge people? So that's, I think, will be a point of discussion for us a bit later on. Like Mr. Raj said, how do you incentivize public behavior in a way you move people away from such use of vehicles at all that would need so much parking space? So I will come to that part of the discussion as well. I just wanted to flag that so we can move on to further talking points. Yeah.
So Mr. David has joined us. I would like to ask him that there are not just multi-level parking. There are a lot of parking issues in Chennai. Like I initially mentioned that we cannot see a road without vehicles being parked. So there are a lot of commercial establishments that park vehicles which have certain mandates, or they may not have certain mandates. But what sort of issues that you have come across when it comes to parking, and have you taken any action or told any of your students as to what is the do's and don'ts of parking?
Okay. Good evening to all. Was very eagerly listening to all the gentlemen's conversation. It was going good. And even my video is disabled by the host. So if someone can open it, I'll be really happy. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Sorry, I'm just traveling back home. Okay, quite interesting. All the points that so far people have discussed is all great. And to add on that, I would really like to put a word that here people, I mean, every individual people has to change from their behavior. I personally believe in that, because we are not willing to do that from our end, because in Gabrina, people has a mindset of parking the vehicle in front of the outlet where they want to go inside and buy certain things. அவங்களுக்கு அங்க வாசல்லே பார்க் பண்ணணும், திரும்ப வெளியே வந்து வாசல்லே வண்டி எடுக்கணும். They don't want to park it somewhere else and walk and come to the shop and buy certain things. அதுக்கு அவங்க உடன்படவே மாட்டாங்க. அதனாலதான் இந்த மல்டி ஸ்டோரி பார்க்கிங் இன் டி நகர் has not come up in a good way நான் நினைக்கிறேன். And moreover, they do not have the time to wait and get their vehicles down. அது எப்போ போவோமோ எங்க போவோமோ, as Mr. Raj said, like it is only for 90 seconds of waiting period, but still people were not ready to maintain that patience. And I was also listening, someone else said like we have to implement or enforce the law from the police department as well. Yes, of course, I do agree that, but I had personally witnessed certain things from the police department. They were trying to take action. For example, in Annanagar area, Shanti Colony, we had one Mrs. Lakshmi IPS. Now she's the Vigilance Department Deputy Director. She was the Deputy Commissioner of Police for West Chennai. That time she had a meeting with the vendors from Shanti Colony, or the shopkeepers or owners of the shops in Shanti Colony. We had a meeting and we discussed in a very strong way regarding this parking issue. That time, Madam has come out with an idea saying that you need to hire a place, an open ground, where all the vendors has to manage the rent for that particular area. And whoever comes there to the Shanti Colony area has to park their vehicle there only. So they will be charged like how T Nagar functions, like they can show their bill, they can show the parking bill in the counter where they purchase products, and they can get discount of that parking this thing. But none of them were ready to cooperate with that point. They were very particular. They will not be able to afford the rental costs over there for the open ground. See here, we were trying to do something, and we are trying to take some initiative and actions towards this. But unfortunately, nothing works out because of the non-cooperation of the shopkeepers or the vendors. One. And the second thing, I was also listening, Mr. Raj said, like, no, you need to tow the car if someone parks in the roadside. My question is like, where will you go and keep that car again? We do not have ample space for that towing vehicles to be parked. Where will we park that towing? அப்படி பார்த்தா நிறைய நம்ம வந்து காரை டோ பண்ணி கொண்டு போய் எங்க வைப்போம் அப்படிங்கிறது ஒரு மேஜர் கொஸ்டின். ஏற்கனவே ஸ்டேஷன்ஸ் எல்லாம் ஃபில்டா இருக்கு. And moreover, it is not like the L&R jurisdiction மாதிரி ஸ்டேஷனுக்கு டிராஃபிக் இங்க அலாட் பண்ணல. ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் திருமங்கலம் லிமிட்ல இருக்கிற வரைக்கும் L&O பார்ப்பாங்க, பட் டிராஃபிக் அப்படி கிடையாது. திருமங்கலம், நொலம்பூர், முகப்பேர் ஆல் புட் டுகெதர் ஒன்லி ஒன் இன்ஸ்பெக்டர் வில் பி தேர். ஸோ நீங்க எவ்வளவு வெஹிக்கிள்ஸை டோ பண்ணி எங்க கொண்டு போய் அந்த டோ வெஹிக்கிள்ஸை பார்க் பண்ணுவீங்க? அதே மாதிரி எத்தனை டோயிங் வெஹிக்கிள்ஸ் நம்மள்ட்ட இருக்கு, போலீஸ் கிட்ட எத்தனை காரை டோ பண்றதுக்கான ஃபெசிலிட்டி இருக்கு? ஸோ ஆல் தீஸ் ப்ராக்டிக்கல் இஷ்யூஸ் ஆர் தேர். அண்ட் என்னுடைய தனிப்பட்ட கருத்து, அக்கார்டிங் டு மை ஒப்பீனியன், இஸ் லைக் every individual has to realize their own importance of parking their vehicles. Again, someone, Sanjay sir was telling about the pooling. So that is also a good idea, but here people are mistaking the same point. Instead of pooling in car, they started to pull it in two-wheelers. Unfortunately, what that scenario is becoming now, it is becoming for us again. என்ன ஆகுதுன்னா, கார்ல டூ வீலர்ல 4 பேர் சேர்த்து உட்கார வச்சு கூட்டிட்டு வர ஆரம்பிச்சிடுறாங்க. கேட்டா எல்லாம் ஒரே ஏரியால இருக்காங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லி, they are actually increasing the risk behaviors. And carpooling will not happen. என்னோட gated communityல என்னோட ஸ்கூல், என் பொண்ணு படிக்கிற ஸ்கூல்ல ஒரு 4 பேர் படிக்கிறாங்க. பட் none of them were willing to அது மாதிரி ஒரு ஐடியா கொண்டு வரதுக்கு முயற்சி பண்றது கிடையாது. எல்லாரும் அவங்கவுங்க தனிப்பட்ட முறையில கிளம்புறாங்க. ஏன்னா பிகாஸ் அவங்கவுங்க வீட்டுல எப்ப எழுந்துப்பாங்க, எப்ப கிளம்புவாங்க, எப்ப இறங்குவாங்க. All these practical difficulties are there. நான் 8:45 நான் கிளம்புவேன், சாரி 7:45 நான் கிளம்புவேன் for 8 o'clock school. பட் அதே காம்பவுண்ட்ல இருந்து 8:50 இன்னொருத்தர் கிளம்புவார், 8:55 இன்னொருத்தர் கிளம்புவார். So lot of misunderstandings will come. One day many blames will come. நீங்க வந்ததுனால தான் நாள் நீட்டு, நான் வந்ததுனால தான் இன்னைக்கு வெளியே நிக்க வச்சாங்க. ஸோ இதெல்லாம் அவாய்ட் பண்றதுக்காக அவங்களோட வெஹிக்கிள் யூஸ் பண்றதுதான் யோசிப்பாங்க. நான் எங்க ஆரம்பிச்சேனோ அங்கேதான் திரும்ப வரேன். It is all about everybody, personal, individual behavior changes இருந்தாலே ஒழிய இந்த ப்ராப்ளத்துக்கு சொல்யூஷன் கொண்டு வர முடியாது. எனக்கு என்கிட்ட ஆக்சுவலா சொல்யூஷன் சொல்றதுக்கு எதுவும் இல்லை. இப்ப பத்மஜா என்கிட்ட கேள்வி கேட்ட மாதிரி we are actually focusing on the next generation so that at least future generation will take this issue seriously and they will come forward with intention of not to disturbing others by parking and all. So adanal in our lesson when we are meeting kids, we are very much clearly telling them that these are all the factors and issues we are facing it out. இதனால இவ்வளவு ப்ராப்ளம் இருக்கு. ஸோ நீங்க அதை ரியலைஸ் பண்ணி நாளைக்கு இதை செய்யாம இருக்கிறதுக்கு முயற்சி பண்ணணும் அப்படிங்கிற வகையில தான் எங்களோட செஷன்ஸ் இருக்கும். In that way, it is also working out, but I don't know how far it is going to help the future because the future is yet to come. That's it from my end.
Just curious, David, have you parked on the road and stationary for a long time in front of Sri Krishna stores, I think? So have you parked on the road or how is that you're at the same place for all this while?
In the Sri Krishna Sweets கேக்குறீங்க sir?
No, I don't know whether Sri Krishna Sweets or Sri Krishna stores. I'm just looking at in a lighter vein that you've been stationary there for a long time. Just asking whether you managed to find parking space on the road.
So, inge pinadiya. I'm at the road aside only. I'm on the main road. So while traveling,
okay.
I cannot talk. No? So,
okay, that's good. Yeah. So I was not sure whether it was a traffic jam there or okay. Now I can see the traffic.
No, it is already jammed only. So it is actually parked the vehicle in front of a closed venue, Sri Krishna Marbles.
Okay, just in a lighter way, I just saw that. So I think, when it comes to a law, see, nobody wanted to. I'm sure even now most people don't like to wear helmets. Two-wheeler riders, we don't need a law to tell people lock your house. Do we have a law that tells people lock your house before you go out? But we lock our houses before we go out for obvious reasons. Similarly, unless you make certain things a law, rainwater harvesting, nobody would have done it had the government not cracked the whip. Similarly, carpooling is something when we talk about the next generation, we need to inculcate this sense of sharing. And it's not just in terms of pollution, in terms of fuel conservation, in terms of, parking space also. But in terms of a solution, I'll give you a small example. Habibullah Road in Tinagar, and I've been flagging this repeatedly. In fact, I've been dealing with police commissioners right from the time when I was a school student and an RSP cadet in Don Bosco. And I've told at least about 7 or 8 police commissioners about this in Habibullah Road, Tinagar. You'll find it's one of the broadest roads actually in the city. But you'll find, condemned vehicles parked on the pavement. So it's like a dog in the manger scenario. Neither can somebody use the pavement for walking or even for parking. So why don't we have, at least since it's not being used for commuters, for pedestrians to walk, why can't we have one side of the road for parking, designated parking, perhaps paid parking with lines, yellow lines drawn so people don't park in a haphazard manner. And the other side, clear out all the other vehicles because vehicles will not park on the pavement if there is space for them to park. And the other side for pedestrians to use to walk. This is one out-of-the-box solution that I can think of, given our constraints. Till we move to a more mature society where people will take public transport, there's no point in telling somebody who's getting drenched in the rain about, global warming and melting of the ice caps and all that. So we need a solution right now. As an interim measure, maybe in certain areas we can demarcate one side of the pavement for parking and the other side for pedestrians. I'm sure Raj will have something to say about this.
So if I could just come in there, so when we talk about, in the future, we will have people who use public transport. According to our our Chennai mobility plan, currently a third of our trips are on public transport, it's just that they're making those trips because they don't have any choice. And when it comes to our cars, there's less than 10% of the trips that are actually made by cars. It's just that our cars are very inefficient and then they use a lot of our space. So people are traveling by public transport, but it's those people who don't have another choice. And of course, public transport trips have been falling. Buses which were catering to 50 lakh trips, have now become almost like 30-35 lakh trips. So the trips are happening, but it's us who use four-wheelers who need to become more responsible about the way we use our streets. And like one of our speakers said, each one of us need to definitely change. When we are here, we are 5 voices that are representing the whole city. Now, when we were working on the pedestrian plaza in Pondi Bazaar, the shopkeepers were refusing to allow for the transformation without a multi-level car park. Like that was a major ask from the stakeholders in that neighborhood. However, even at that particular point, we already knew from multi-level car parks in cities like Bangalore, which had about 11 multi-level car parks, where the occupancy was less than 20 to 30%, that creating this would not really solve your problem, because unless and until you enforce all around the multi-level car park, nobody will use. Like our speaker said in the past, people just like to park on the street and then run to do whatever. So you need to have high level of enforcement. And as someone who's worked very closely with, for example, the corporation and the traffic police, the issue with respect to traffic police is that they don't have the staff to enforce. So they're like, we are understaffed. Parking is not our highest priority. We have law and order issues. We have, other important issues that we are dealing with. So we do not have the staff to enforce parking. And when the corporation brings in the service provider to enforce parking, the Motor Vehicle Act does not give them the full power that is required for them to enforce it. Now, and very rightful questions, how many towing vehicles do we have? And also the question about where would you tow these vehicles to? Because when we were discussing with the police, that was exactly the same question that came. We do not have the grounds. I know there's one of our speakers, Kannan, sir, who's been wanting to speak next. Over to you, sir. But when we were discussing, these were very, very real challenges. And the way we were trying to solve it was that if a car is parked in a no parking area, or if it's parked on a footpath, the aim was to tow it to the nearest parking spot, but charge them maybe 4 times or multiple times the parking fees. That was the way we were trying to make the solution for it. There were so many questions about if the towing vehicle damages a high-end car, what kind of issues? All these high-end users are also people who can reach out to high-end political or otherwise stakeholders, thereby putting the service provider and even sometimes our officials in a lot of question. So this is like Raj said, it's easier discussed but more difficult to work on it. But that doesn't mean that we cannot, and we should. And there are many issues like everybody has to improve. So just like our speaker said, that we as citizens need to become more responsible, I'm sure. And I definitely agree that even the service that the city is providing has to be improved. Today, what we're doing is not perfect. We have, like Kannan said about how you park, the parking fees is 60 rupees, but what is being charged is 20. Yes, so that is an improvement. You need to fix that system. You need to monitor and you need to fix that. These are some of the issues that we face, but yeah, Mr. Kannan, you've been having your hand up, so over to you once again.
You have been talking about this tow vehicle. Chennai, எத்தனை police station tow vehicle work பண்ணுது தெரியுமா? There is only one tow vehicle which is working, mainly for the escort of CM and other people. மத்த எந்த tow vehicle work பண்ணல. Reason being, the High Court has given an order saying that you can't take money from the tow vehicle, you have to pay online. This started the traffic police to stop running the tow vehicle. In our police station, we have 3 tow vehicles, 2 for the 2-wheelers, 1 for the 4-wheeler. None of them are in a running condition today.
What about clamping of vehicles?
Clamping of vehicles can be done, but then if the driver is not enough, he can remove the tire and he can put his stepney and take the vehicle and go away.
Actually, Mr. Kannan and Sanjay, I'll give you an answer. If you look at the current parking management system that's being operating in Tinagar and all, just to add what Ashwati said, they have the power to clamp, number one. Okay, if it is in a parking spot, illegal parking spot, and if it's not obstructing traffic, they have the power to clamp, number one. Number two, they can, by the way, I don't buy this argument that there's no space. Like Ashwati said, as per the tender, you can take the car, put it into an empty slot, which is available, and charge X rupees. I don't remember the exact number. Number two, let's assume he is parked in a place where it's obstructing traffic. The parking vendor has the authority to take it and take it to the nearest police station or an empty spot assigned by the police station. Those are not at all, in my opinion, big issues. The problem is this. Only a sub-inspector or inspector and above can come and give a challan. You or I or a parking vendor cannot do that.
No,
apart from the Motor Vehicles Act, you can book these people, whether it is parking in a no parking zone, or whether it's parking, which is another menace today, parking in front of somebody's gate, especially in apartment buildings. There are times when even during a medical emergency, I was not able to take my vehicle out. These are classic cases where 268 of the Indian Penal Code, Section 268, can be invoked for a public nuisance.
No, so
anyone
Sanjay,
who causes obstruction or annoyance.
I agree, Sanjay.
268 against these people for public nuisance. Only then there will be some deterrence. Without deterrence, you cannot enforce any law.
There's no debate about that. There's no debate that they can be charged. But it is, you can't, I cannot, Ashwati cannot, doctor cannot, Mr. Kannan cannot. It has to be a sub-inspector and above. Now, how many sub-inspectors and above are walking around the street waiting with a pen and paper to go charge this guy, right? So, I mean, see, here's, since time is of the essence, here is my solution. This, since Citizen Matters has taken a big responsibility and bringing everybody together, what with experts and committed people like Mr. Kannan, Mr. Sanjay and others, here is what I would suggest, a serious suggestion, right? One, I agree, carpooling, etc. are one of the many important solutions. Can we take it to the logical end and try to see where are the bottlenecks, etc., etc. Try to get it implemented or in a pilot basis. Number two, take a problem like Tinagar, MLCP, etc., where all the facilities are there. So it's not like some jungle where there's no facility available. So people can say, facility kudukama neenga ketittirukeenga. Everything public has asked is in and around that multi-level car park. Can we, including people, lawyers like Sanjay and others, take a look at the actual legal issues, etc., and help the corporation, help the police solve it. Let's go to, you can go to court, whatever the techniques are. Okay, I'm not going to list it out here. Same thing with schools, for example. Can we take 1 or 2 pilot schools and say, what does it take to bring about law that will say, you know what, you're going to put this kid in this particular school, you better be doing such and such thing with your car. And for example, Mr. Kannan could take a residential street because it's a very different behavior from the bus route road. This is a very, very completely different laws, completely behavior and all. Because as far as I know, you can't charge Mr. Kannan, for example, if he parks in front of his house. That's what I've been told. Okay, this has been debated to death during the tender of the parking. So can we take that kind of an example and then talk to CMD, talk to Chennai Corporation and say, here is the consensus that we can do so that, for example, old places, now you cannot ask Mr. Kannan to go build a multi-level car park on his house. So what do we do about that? There is a new building that has violated rules. What can we do about that? So I would suggest Citizen Matters, along with corporation, along with traffic police, including people, influential people like Mr. Sanjay and Mr. Kannan and others. I think we should take 2, 3 low-hanging fruit or 5 low-hanging fruit and take it to the logical conclusion. Because I think Chennai, I want to end this in a positive note. I know we've worked, many of us have worked on this field for a long time. There are a lot of pieces of what we are asking for in place. If you go to a completely different city, I wouldn't be this optimistic, right? Chennai, there are many, many pieces, like I told you, 40 crore MLCP, etc., and a very, very well-established parking management vendor, etc., on the ground. If you go to another city, Madurai, etc., I don't think they have all this stuff. So Chennai, we are actually lucky that we have some building blocks to play with. can we, with experts like you and Citizen Matter, take this forward? I will end here on a positive note because we have come a long way, as much as we are frustrated. Now we have to take this to the logical conclusion.
I have one question for you.
When did you recently travel in a government bus, MTC?
Sir, I have one question for you.
No, my question is to Mr. Raj. When was your recent travel in MTC?
Raj travels everywhere in a metro rail or a bus or his MRTS. So Raj will definitely have a.
I have one question. I would like to have one question now. Why was road parking allowed in Pandi Bazaar? When it has a multi-level parking, why was road parking allowed in Pandi Bazaar?
No. Because of the shopkeepers.
Because the shopkeepers said that they would not allow any projects to happen if, it's the same citizen, sir. Ninglu citizen, avangalu citizen. Yenda citizen kekradhi, yenda
நீங்க 40 கோடி ரூபாய் செலவு பண்ணி ஒரு பார்க்கிங் லாட் கட்டிட்டு ரோட்லயே பார்க் பண்ண அலோவ் பண்றேன்னு சொல்றது முட்டாள்தனமா இல்ல?
And the time
you want an honest answer? Can I give you a brutally frank answer? Vote bank.
No, Mr. Kannan, it's not
vote bank
actually. Okay, no.
Problem. Let me tell you the problem actually. Lot of people are parking not on Pandi Bazaar, but the adjoining residential streets.
Sir, Kannan,
the adjoining residential streets have become very, very poor in terms of pollution. Old people are not able to walk on streets. The adjoining residential streets are adjacent to Pandi Bazaar. They are suffering now.
Mr. Kannan, I completely agree. That's what I'm trying to say, that the solution, quick theoretical seminar solution to that is, let's say 500 meters around the MLCP should have different variable pricing. So for example, like you asked, why did you allow parking on Pandi Bazaar? Nothing should allow, says don't allow parking. All I would suggest is, let's assume theoretically, right? 150 rupees to park on Pandi Bazaar, because there are n number of slots available in Pandi Bazaar. There are 222 car slots available inside the MLCP. You charge them 60 rupees. Nothing wrong with it. Malllayum பண்றாங்க, எல்லாத்துலயும் பண்றாங்க.
எல்லாம் பண்றாங்க. நான் ஒரே ஒரு சஜஷன், நீங்க ஒரு மாருதி கார்லயோ ஒரு சாண்ட்ரோ கார்லயோ போனீங்கன்னா 60 rupees வாங்குவான். நீங்க ஒரு டாடா சஃபாரிலயோ ஒரு ஃபார்ச்சூனர்லயோ முன்னாடி ஒரு பொலிட்டிஷியன் படத்தை மாட்டிட்டு ஒரு பிளாக கட்டிட்டு போனீங்கன்னா பைசா கேட்க முடியாது. This is the problem today.
Yeah, Purida sir, I understand that. My point is we have to fix the problem. I'm not saying, see, if I wouldn't want that to be in your shoes, and I would be so angry to see other people's car come and park in front of my house. I completely agree. So that's what I'm saying, sir. I think the next step of the seminar should be to take 5 or 6 such problems and dive deep and take it to the logical end. Because
no, I think as a positive takeaway from what Raj said and what Mr. Kannan also said, as a lawyer, as a former journalist turned lawyer, I would definitely offer my services to Citizen Matters. If you can flag certain issues, we can focus. There's a void created after. I mean, some people may not have agreed with his methods, but personally, I had a lot of respect for Mr. Traffic Ramaswamy, who passed away recently.
Yes.
Traffic Ramaswamy's demise has left a void when it comes to activism on that front. So I think if Citizen Matters can fill that void left by Mr. Traffic Ramaswamy, I'd be happy to lend whatever support I can, both in taking things up with the bureaucracy. We have a good set of senior officers, let's face it. Compared to other states, I would say Tamil Nadu has one of the most, having interacted with them closely over the years, Tamil Nadu has perhaps the most accessible senior bureaucrats in the country. So I think we should take advantage of that, make representations. The way it works is, you make a representation to an authority, and if no action is taken after a reasonable time, you file a writ petition or file a public interest litigation. There are different writs that you can file, mandamus, certiorari, we come to that later. Citizen Matters can play that activist role. I mean, I'd like to leave on that positive note.
And Sanjay, I would suggest that, for example, there's a lot of hope. See, for example, court may ask, okay, what are they supposed to do? I'm not a lawyer, because I'm just assuming. Mr. Kannan's problem, for example, MLCP munadi park panirkanga, no parking, etc. There is enough homework done in Chennai. Believe me, this topic has been beaten to death. Enough homework has been done. Dynamic parking, etc., etc. We can easily give all this. ITDP, I'm sure, has a mountain of stuff sitting around where we can tell the officials saying that this is what other countries have done. This is what other cities have done. This is not a unique Chennai problem. It's a universal problem. I've been to many cities where the same unruliness happened. It's just that the systems are functioning there. So I would say, I would add to what Sanjay said. We are happy to do the homework and give you different models of what an ideal situation should be. And we should talk to the government. In fact, the Kumta is functioning now. So the parking policy as we speak is in Kumta, is being considered. Many other things that Ashwati and I mentioned, dynamic parking fees, etc., are being considered, right? If citizens can come forward and start putting positive pressure on officials and everything, that will have a very, very positive impact beyond what an Ashwati or a Raj can go tell people, right? So we are willing to do the homework with Citizen Matters and Sanjay and Kannan and others. It's just that if we don't do that, I look at the list of people on this talk and I look at them as friends. That's why I'm being so frank. Otherwise, I would be like very diplomatic, right? I've talked to Mr. Kannan many times. I look at him as a friend who shares the same problem. Otherwise, next year we will have the same Citizen Matter discussion on parking. I am tired. All the people in this seminar is tired of talking these topics. I sincerely believe we are in a very good situation to take this forward to some positive step forward, and let's solve this problem.
And if I could
suggestions
just,
well taken by everyone. Yes, Ashwati. Sorry.
If I could just add on Raj's point. So one of the things that I've always noticed that has really worked wonders is when there is a law that the court passes. So we may not agree totally, but sometimes when there are laws that so for example in Pondi Bazaar there was a law that the vendors need to make. I'm not saying it's what the right thing or the wrong thing, because but the law when enforced makes it possible for even the government to actually do things. So if with this great opportunity that Mrs. Sanjay Pinto has very graciously agreed, if there's things that can be done through law, that would really then the government will have to enforce, and that would be a great way to move ahead as well as we look at solutions for parking.
So thank you for that, Ms. Ashwati and Mr. Raj. So we all know about the emerging problems when it comes to parking. So I was wondering if you could share the first few steps or the workable solutions that can be incorporated as of now.
I think Mr. Raj has fielded that question. He's already put his points forth. If anybody
else, I'll just give you a quick solution. I was an RSP cadet, road safety patrol cadet, when I was in school. So I think even the advertising industry taps in on this. It's called the pester power of children. If the Chennai City Traffic Police, I'll speak to Mr. Jiwal and Mr. Saratkar as well. If they can use the RSP cadets across, if they can reactivate, as I know they're pretty dormant in many schools, if they can reactivate the RSP cadet, the entire brigade, and sort of try and popularize carpooling, that may be a good first step.
So I would go on to say that what Raj first said, that we need to make sure that we also use our sustainable modes of transportation, and when we're thinking about the future children, if we can't get them to walk, cycle, or use the bus, if we're also getting them to use car, then how are we going to tell them not to park? Because when I'm speaking to my kids, the first thing that the school teaches me is that you are an example that your child is going to follow. So if we get them to use the car, then they will definitely ask for the parking. But if we can, like Mr. Sanjay spoke earlier, that schools do have a zone that residences need to be. This place that my children go to school, lots of children actually come by walk and by cycle as well. So can we make sure that our school zones, which even our chief minister graciously spoke about during the first Kumta meeting, that we need to have safe schools and safe routes to school. So can we make sure that our children can walk and cycle and get our schools to have public buses, so that our children begin their journey by sustainable transportation?
And then as our city provides high quality, sustainable transportation, they would hopefully continue this into the future as well. Because all of us, when we go to a London or Singapore, we do use walk, cycle and bus because...
Ashwati, Chennai is not quite London or Singapore. Let me tell you, as a parent of twin children,
it will.
I am not comfortable sending my children to walk or to cycle to school. I will not endanger their lives. Half the roads are dug up in Chennai. Let's be practical. As things stand right now, I as a parent am not comfortable sending my children by cycle or by walk to school, although it is perhaps what 4.5 kilometers away from where I live.
I completely agree with you, sir. But today, if you voice out, maybe the students of maybe 5 years or 10 years from now can make a difference. So recently, we were in a discussion with the World Bank. Paris transformed 500 to 1,000 kilometers of their streets in a very short duration of time. And the reason they said that they were able to make it safe for walking and cycling is because they had this rule that any street that gets dug up for any purpose needs to be repurposed with safe footpaths and safe cycle tracks. Forget cycle tracks, at least safe footpaths. If our children are living 1 kilometer or 500 meters away from the school, they should be able to walk. Today, if a stormwater is getting done, only stormwater is getting fixed. Why are we not improving the footpath on top of it, which can then create a network of streets? That's because multiple departments are working on it and there are issues. So today, I'm not saying that you can work, but if you voice out your concern and like, for example, Mr. David and multiple other citizens reach out and ask our city to provide safe routes for walking and maybe cycling, tomorrow our children will be able to use, maybe not your children, maybe, but my children can go for walking. And I'm sure if not yours, you'd be happy if mine go to school by cycling.
Not that old.
So I just wanted to flag one thing. I think thank you for joining all of us. And we obviously did not presume that we'd be able to solve for Chennai's parking issues, such a complicated thing that each of you brought out the various facets of how complex addressing this challenge actually is and the various sides of it. Like, so we would definitely be keeping an eye on this issue and trying to take this forward in meaningful ways, reach out to more stakeholders, be in touch with the panelists as well. So this is not the last of it that we would be working on parking in Chennai. So I just wanted to flag that, and I want to thank all of you for your time and suggestions as well in this discussion. And I think there are some points that maybe we've not addressed, but I think we're a bit over the time limit for today. But we'll hopefully address that in individual pieces and articles that we'll be putting out on this issue in the coming months as well. I just wanted to flag that and thank all the panelists for joining us today.
Let me just say at the end that, you know, coming from the television industry, this panel discussion is much better than the 9 p.m. debates that we have. So congratulations, Citizen Matters.
Thanks, Sanjay.
So much. It was a pleasure being on the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, panelists. We just have a couple of questions from the audience. So if that could be answered, that would be great, since we are running out of time.
Please go ahead.
So if the audience wants to unmute them, raise their hand and unmute themselves, they're free to do so. We can take 1 or 2 questions.
Actually, I would like to ask few questions. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, actually, we are talking about the issues which are there in the Pandi Bazaar most of the time. Everyone start debating about it. But after this CMRL came into picture, the metro rail, both green line and blue line, I personally feel like the parking problem in that particular lines has been solved. For example, like in VR Mall, there is no metro station in front of VR Mall. But if you see, the parking lot is completely packed. No one wants to park in the VR Mall. It's purely because there is a fare difference. Why can't we do those kind of a fare difference? Because for example, it's for 6 hours, it's only 20 rupees for a car and 10 rupees for a bike. So when you decrease the price over there, definitely the parking lots and people tend to move towards the parking lots instead of like parking on the streets. as we discussed, like I think in the MLCP, which is there in the T Nagar or like the Pandi Bazaar, for our it's 60 rupees. It's incomparable, I would say, the price that CMRR is giving. So when you do this kind of steps, definitely there will be a shift that we can able to see.
Can I answer that? See, I don't want to get into the exact numbers. MLCP is actually 20 rupees per hour. Outside on the Pandi Bazaar, for example, it's 40 rupees. The point is that think of it, you're the VR mall person, right? Express Avenue, I know, because I spoke to some of the management and they said they spent 70 crores building the 2 basement parking, right? If you're going to spend 70 crores, there is some money rate that you expect from parking to at least break even. So because you're obviously mall is not running a charity. So what I would suggest is that instead of asking the mall to reduce the price, corporation and highway department or whoever it is who owns the road outside the VR mall should increase the price. So either you park for, let's say, some number, high number outside, or you go inside and pay a lower number, or take the metro rail. This is what advanced countries do. That's what I was trying to point out. But your point is very good. That is, differential pricing is most part of the world. And those kinds of sophisticated mechanism is what solves their parking problem. We need to adopt it. That part, I completely agree with you.
Thank you, sir. We can take just one more question. I guess there's nobody who has a question right now. I would like to close the panel discussion. I would like to thank all the panelists and the audience who have joined for this session, especially all the panelists who have shelled out precious time from their busy days. And we would follow this up, and we have even had a conversation with GCC officials that they would incorporate some of these suggestions into policy making, whichever is possible. Yeah. Thank you so much, all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.